Oh boy. So, got some bad news to talk about tonight. Feels like lately YouTube has been a little unfair with the applications of their TOS, doesn't it? Recently, I did a segment about Jessie Gender, a popular trans YouTuber, calling out Matt Walsh for his transphobia. And in that video, she was falsely striked for sex and nudity. Despite the fact that Matt Walsh, the content creator she was responding to, who's much bigger and much more known by YouTube and the broader YouTube viewing audience, explicitly breaking YouTube TOS in every video. It feels really strange that YouTube would go out of their way to strike a content creator falsely who's calling that out. Thing is, this isn't the first time this has happened. If we've still got Conyer in chat, Conyer recently got striked falsely for calling out misinformation on YouTube, TOS content on YouTube. That itself wasn't striked, just the lefty content creator calling it out. I've been false striked many times instead of the content that I was calling out that was actually TOS. And still to this day, that content that I was calling out has yet to be taken down. It feels as though there's almost maybe not in intent, but certainly in effect, a bias in favor of larger content creators in the political space when it comes to the algorithm false striking their content and flagging it for TOS violations. And the problem is, with a bias in favor of larger content creators, that's almost always going to benefit the right. The right has always, at least for a while now, had a stronger foothold online than the left, right? Like, the average right-wing political content creator has over 100,000 subs. The average left-wing content creator has less than 20k. I'm sorry, but it's true. The left just does not have anywhere near the kind of audience the right has online, and it's because the right is very good at weaponizing culture war issues to bring in the normies to their audience, and it makes them blow up in size. And because of that, YouTube seems to be way more likely to give, some more leeway to content creators that make them more money. And the content creators making them more money right now are right-wing content creators, not left-wing ones. Not only that, but left-wing content creators are also kind of a financial risk for YouTube and Twitch and these other platforms right now. You see, it has happened before where one YouTuber bringing attention to something happening on YouTube has caused what's called an adpocalypse. An adpocalypse on YouTube is when basically advertisers, companies, pull their ads off the platform out of risk of their ads running on content that doesn't look good for their brand to be associated with. AKA, far-right political content, basically. And in 2017, there was a big adpocalypse where YouTube was forced to crack down on the far-right sentiment on their platform, as were a lot of other platforms too, because they realized that other companies would be pulling their ads as well if they didn't follow suit. However, it feels as though some time's passed. YouTube's gotten lazy, and we're now back in another age of right-wing dominance online, and it feels as though the same problem has popped up again, but mainstream media is not calling it out like they did back in the day, because it's been a while. It's kind of been forgotten about, the whole YouTube alt-right pipeline issue. Not really a mainstream news topic for the last few years. Well, it's happening again, and it's happening possibly worse than ever. And the funny thing is, I thought that, okay, maybe smaller left-wing content creators are likely to get false striked, but surely the larger left-wing content creators have some ability to have this dealt with, right? You would be surprised, my friends. This morning I woke up to 2 fraudulent YouTube channel strikes. One to my main channel, and one to my second. I won't be able to stream or post videos to my main channel for a week. It's extremely clear these strikes are the product of fraudulent brigading, as I'll explain. And of course, we've got the, 1 out of 3 false strikes, and it's a warning. The claim they made is that Vaush broke the TOS having to do with violent threats and terroristic action or whatever. Terroristic threats or something. Violence and terroristic threats. We'll get into that in a minute. Both strikes occurred at the same time on months-old content in the middle of the night. Both were for quote-unquote violent or graphic content, both of these factors suggest coordinated report brigading, but what was the content? The main channel strike was on a 4-hour stream VOD, so it's really difficult to know what was being implicated here. If we're at great risk of political turmoil and need to be ready to defend yourself, is YouTube TOS, say goodbye to all of gun and right-wing YouTube. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, if you've ever watched like a Brandon Herrera video, he's talked about how you need to arm yourself to fight. Make sure you arm yourself because you don't want the state to come take your rights from you or whatever. You know, like that's literally every pro-gun channel. But the Vaush pit strike was on a 105-second video in which I watched GOP candidate Eric Greitens' ridiculous rhino hunting ad. I laughed at it, compared it to Nazi party infighting, and my video ends. My video contained nothing even remotely interpretable as violent or graphic content. If that's violent or graphic content, every single politics and news channel would be gone by now. At Team YouTube, please review my appeals and remove these strikes. They are as artificial and fraudulent as you can get. Now, the funny thing is, of course, Vaush was the one who got this false strike, and yet, actually 2 false strikes, and yet, the content he was reacting to is still up on YouTube and is completely fine because it was uploaded by a right-wing channel. Who would have thought? Funny thing is, though, it gets worse. It gets so much worse. You would think that, okay, well, Vaush has, you know, a lot of subs, right? Which means he can get, you know, I would assume a fair amount of talk going online, perhaps enough that YouTube could do something about it. Well, it gets worse with this reply. Following up by Team YouTube. Following up, we've confirmed that your video was correctly removed for violating our violent criminal organizations policy. Content intended to praise, promote, or aid violent criminal organizations is not allowed on YouTube. So they just straight up doubled down on the strike. They, now I have no doubt in my mind they didn't actually send a real human to review the video. They never do this unless something really gets made a big deal about it. But this is pretty clear, I think. Right now, evidentially speaking, YouTube has a conservative bias. And the right has been claiming incessantly that big tech is anti-right-wing. I think it's about time the left, using the obvious evidence that we have here, we fight against big tech. Big tech is anti-leftist. You know, the left needs to fight against big tech. Big tech is after your freedom, and big tech is anti-left wing. They're pro-right wing. I've been saying this. Yet many have been saying this. Conyers been saying this. Everyone's been saying this. I feel like the left really does need to start like leaning into that more, because in reality, big tech does not have a left wing or a right wing bias. They have a money bias. They are companies. Their job is to make money. That is it. That is their purpose. They are companies. They are privately owned organizations. Some of them are publicly traded. Hell, publicly traded corporations have even higher, motivation to make more money and to keep their like stock price high. Publicly traded companies like Twitter, they have way more motivation, way more like reason to want to keep their image looking clean, because all that it takes to tank their stock value is people thinking, oh, this is going to make YouTube or this is going to make Twitter look bad, and they sell their shares and stock values drop. That's all it takes. Like companies that are publicly traded are even more beholden to the values of like the general public, right? And that's as capitalistic as it gets, trading stocks. This is not like a pro-right-wing, pro-left-wing thing. This is a capitalism thing, okay? These companies and their sole purpose is to make money, and if we are the product, Twitter doesn't charge for normal services, right? If you aren't paying to use Twitter, if you aren't paying for a product, then you are the product. That's how it works. There's no exceptions. Name one. Well, obviously free shit. Like, if it's just free, like if something's being given away for free, like pirated shit or just a free open source software, that's different than like, here is a product and where, it's free, but, you know, here you go. Like, Twitter, obviously, the users are the product on Twitter, right? Twitter has to be free to use because without any users, Twitter is useless, right? People are only on Twitter for the other people that are also on Twitter. Twitter is just a platform to facilitate the interaction, right? So, always these companies are going to have a bias in favor of what creators, what demagogues are making them the most money. And quick, easy, quippy lies are going to be the best money makers as far as propaganda goes, more so than long-winded lefty videos taking apart said lies and explaining why they're wrong. And that's why YouTube has a financial incentive to side with right-wing figures like Matt Walsh, who is literally just saying trans people are groomer pedophiles in every single video, just blatantly breaking TOS in every video, who, like, at the beginning of this year made a video that was called, This is my year of war against trans ideology, is what he started this year with. A video in which he talks about how this is his year where he's going to fight harder than ever against trans ideology. That, by the way, is the pretext to the whole thing that's happened this year, by the way, if you've been paying attention. He basically telegraphed all of it and announced what he'd be doing this year at the beginning. I made a video about it. And despite all of that, despite the fact that all of this has been well known by YouTube and these other, you know, companies, they don't ban these figures. And yet, despite not banning them, despite them making shit tons of money off these platforms, you better believe they will still draw up the biggest fucking pity parties, like little baby bitches, every time a right-wing YouTuber actually gets in trouble for breaking TOS. They'll ignore and perhaps even just say, haha, this is what you want, anytime a left-wing figure gets false striked. Emphasis on false. Not that the strike was bad, it's that it was a false strike, a strike issued for a lack of breaking the rules. No rules were broken, and yes, yet the strike was issued anyway. They will claim that that is what the left is in favor of, when in fact the left is simply in favor of the TOS applying and strikes applying to people who actually break the TOS, not to people who don't. It really is frustrating to deal with right-wingers in this issue. They'll obviously try to twist the reality of the situation and that mostly small left-wing figures are getting fucked over by YouTube's censorship into some way to victimize themselves and to make more money off of it. In reality, if anyone's being censored on these platforms, it is left-wing figures with much smaller platforms and just so much less recourse to get the attention of a platform like YouTube or Twitter or just generally Google at all to have problems like this fixed. And we all know beyond a shadow of a doubt the video, it's a false strike. It just is a false strike. The person who actually did do the rule breaking is a Republican politician who uploaded the original video he was reacting to onto their official YouTube channel. And yet they uphold the strike. I want to take us back to an article I read recently on stream. There was a Verge article. Or actually, here's a better one by The Verge. Twitter's research shows that its algorithm favors conservative views. During the study, Twitter looked at millions of tweets posted between April 1st and August 15th, 2020. So this is back during 2020. This is during the time when I'd consider the left was most dominant online. That it's been in the last 10 years during 2020. And that's when this data was collected, where they claim that these tweets were from news outlets and elected officials in Canada, France, Germany, Japan, Spain, and the UK, and the US. In all countries studied except Germany, Twitter found that right-leaning accounts received more algorithmic amplification than the political left. It also discovered that right-leaning content from news outlets benefits from the same bias. Twitter says that it doesn't know why the data suggests its algorithm favors right-leaning content, nothing that it's a significantly more difficult question to answer as it is a product of the interactions between people and the platform. However, it may not be a problem with Twitter's algorithm specifically, and I don't think it is entirely a problem with the algorithm. Said Steve Rajay, a PhD candidate who studies social media, published the results of his research that explains how divisive content about political outgroups is more likely to go viral. No shit. Their loud, angry lies are way more likely to get views and money than some, like, well-educated breakdown of why it's all bullshit. It's as simple as that. Like, YouTube has to crack down on this content and ban it to stop the spread of this misinformation. It is not possible for the truth to win out over lies in a platform that actively rewards algorithmically lying and over-exaggerating things and misrepresenting things. That is what YouTube is facilitating, lies over the truth. There's a reason why the rise of conspiracy theories like flat earth and anti-vax came about with the internet. It's because all these platforms and algorithms are designed to make the most stupid, insane shit more accessible to as many people as possible. That's how Jared Leto has this giant island cult right now, because of people he's no doubt groomed through the internet. Like, a lot of it's like mentally ill people, like with access to the internet, like falling into rabbit holes themselves, and a lot of these movements do prey on people with like neurodivergent mental conditions. It's a whole thing, but I'll get called ableist if I dig too much into it. So let's move on. If we take Racha's research into account, this could mean that right-leaning posts on Twitter successfully spark more outrage, resulting in amplification. Perhaps Twitter's algorithm issue is tied to promoting toxic tweeting more than a specific political bias, and as we mentioned earlier, Twitter's research said that Germany was the only country that didn't experience the right-leaning algorithm bias. Germany is literally a country that banned Russia Today. Like, you can't access Russia Today on German Twitter. And, like, Nazi accounts and, like, shit like that. Like, they like, Germany and, like, Croatia and, like, a lot of countries like that have, like, banned certain content only in their countries from being accessible through Twitter because of the content of their... By the way, isn't it funny how the right will say, as long as it's not illegal, then it's fine on these platforms, and yet, like, there are literally countries having to ban Twitter accounts because they've been deemed legally, like, they are legally spreading misinformation. Like, in countries, they made it illegal to maliciously lie over and over again to spread misinformation to harm, a group of minorities, like a minority group. Those countries have banned these figures on Twitter. Like, when that's a reality that we live in, and yet Twitter has not banned those figures themselves, countries have banned them, but Twitter hasn't themselves, I think that's when it's clear that these platforms do not have a left-wing bias. They have, if anything, a right-wing bias. Plus, Elon Musk is about to own Twitter, so all of it's about any claim about these platforms having a right-wing bias is going to be, or a left-wing bias is going to be bullshit anyway. It's about to very much have a right-wing bias. Anyway, we live in a nightmare world. An absolute fucking nightmare world. And if you want to help fight against it, then it just so happens that one of the best ways to do so is to actually engage with left-wing content that you watch. So consider dropping a like down below, subscribing and ringing the bell icon to turn on all notifications so YouTube actually tells you when I go live or upload a new video. And of course, if you want to see more from me here online, make sure to follow my social medias linked down below in the description. And finally, if you've got the money for it, you can donate, subscribe, or gift a sub on my website, xanderhal.com/live, or support me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Streamelements, or Patreon. No matter how you support me financially or spiritually, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.